Good morning, friends. I hope you guys are doing well. Well, it's a hot day today, and I know I've been horrible at recording these videos. Obviously, it's the summertime, so I'm enjoying the summer. With that being said, I wanted to create this video because I know so many of you guys don't even know where to start. So you've discovered Portugal, you've seen my videos, you've seen other YouTube videos, you went on all the forums, you're asking all these questions, but you don't even know where to start when it comes to scouting Portugal. You look at Portugal and you're like, okay, what area would be the best area for my family or for myself if you don't have family and you just don't know where to start. So I wanted to create this video to help you with your scouting trip to Portugal. So I broke this down into 5 different areas that you need to do before you even begin your scouting trip. So let's get to it. First and foremost, this could be a situation for you, or maybe not if you don't have any kids, or if your kids have grown up and you're now retiring. So just skip over this part. But I feel like the first thing I'm going to put on your need to research prior to scouting Portugal is something rather important to families, and that is choosing the right school. So as you know, Portugal does offer 3 to maybe 4 different types of schooling depending on your preference. So 1 would be public, 2 would be private, 3 would be international, and 4 would be more of a homeschool option, which some people enjoy doing. So the first thing I would tell you is sit down with your significant other, your children, and see which option is best for you. A lot of people enjoy sending their kids straight to public school to get them fully immersed in the language and the culture, while others prefer something like an international school where they'll help continue their current studies. So it just really all depends on the option that suits best for your family. Now, based upon that first step, will kind of help determine which area makes most sense for your family, which leads me to number 2. Choosing the right city or town. Are you a city person or are you a town person? Do you like to live more in a rural area, or do you want to live by the coast? Or there's so many different options. So let's say your family chose international schools. Well, the international schools are going to be based mainly in the larger city areas and maybe the Algarves. So you've kind of already broken down into regional areas where international schools lies. So for instance, you have Lisbon, you have Cascais, you have the Porto Braga area, which is in the northern area. Then you have the Algarve. And of course, you'll see here and there some little international schools outside of those main areas. But if you don't want to be tied down to only one option of international school, you're really going to be looking at those 3-4 main areas that I told you about. Now keep in mind, so let's just say you lived in New York City, or you currently live in New York City, or you live in Texas, I don't know, a larger area with more of a populated area. So just keep in mind that you tell yourself, okay, well, I live in New York City and with a population of over 8 million people, and I want to move to a big city in Lisbon. Just keep in mind that Lisbon itself is still a really small city. So if you're coming from an area with 8 million people and you're used to like that hustle and bustle life, and you go to Lisbon really only, as of, I think the population as of 2016, which of course has gone up since, but back in 2016, I think they had a population of about 500,000 people. So it's really not that big of a city in the grand scheme if you're coming from a really large city. So just keep that in mind. With that being said, you have the larger cities like Lisbon and Porto, which even Porto only has, as of 2016, a population of about 200 and some thousand people. So I can safely say it's probably close to double by now, I would assume, but it's still a rather small city. So just keep that in mind. So if you already have that mindset that maybe Lisbon and Porto are small cities for you, once you go into a small city in Portugal, it might be kind of small. So for instance, where I live here in the Silver Coast in Caldas da Rainha, it's a small city. It's probably maybe 50,000 people. So it just just keep that all in mind. Let's just say you don't want your kids to be in international school and you don't mind public school or private school. So that kind of just then broadens your horizon as far as options go. So if you don't want to live in a larger city like Lisbon and Porto because of cost, or you just don't want that many people around you, which I totally get, then you kind of expand your horizons at that point. And in that situation, I would then tell you, okay, let's talk about weather. And do you want to live by the coast? Do you want to live in an area that has more of 4 seasons? Or do you want to live in an area that the weather is relatively warm all year long? And based upon that, you can kind of decide if you want to live in the northern part of Portugal, maybe the central part of Portugal, or down in the Algarve, which is the southern part of Portugal. Which then leads me to number 3. Do you want to live by the coast? So the coastline, so the western side of Portugal. Or do you want to live in the mountain area, which then maybe you want to live a little bit more inland? Do you need to have year-long warmer temperatures than the rest? Do you mind the 4 seasons, like I was mentioning before? So once you kind of narrow down those couple questions that I laid out to you, you can then take a map of Portugal and then look to see what area makes sense. So just note that in the northern area, like Porto and Braga, it is going to have more of a 4 seasons feel to it. So it may rain a bit more than, let's just say, in the Algarve, or it may be a little bit colder up there, and that's pretty normal. Then if you go down to the Silver Coast area, it's a little bit more mild than, let's just say, the northern part of Portugal. Then we have the Lisbon, Cascais, Setúbal area, which is warmer than the Silver Coast, and so forth. When you go down, all the way down to Algarve, it is probably going to be the warmest area of Portugal. Especially the further inland you go, the warmer it's going to be. So even if you're going all the way from the top to the bottom, but inland, right along the border of Spain, it's going to have really warm temperatures there. So just keep that in mind when you are checking all these boxes and writing down your list. Just know that that is going to be warm. Like, I think we drove past it because we just went to Spain. We went past that area to go back home, and it was in the 40 degrees Celsius. Not that long ago. So, and that's pretty common for that area. So if you don't like 40 degrees Celsius, which I believe is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to be toasty over there. So I would just mark that off of your list if you're searching that area. Number 4, and this is a very critical question for you guys. Do you need to have a car, or are you going to rely on public transportation? This itself may narrow down a lot of your potential searches. Because let's say you want to live in a small town, but you need to have public transportation because you don't want to purchase a car, you don't want to maintain a car, I get it. Then you're going to really have to see how the public transportation is in that city. Because coming from someone who initially didn't want to have a car, I don't know many cities that I could feel comfortable living in that had really reliable public transportation other than the big cities, obviously, that I listed already. Now, not to say that impossible, because once you live in a smaller city, especially like in Caldish over here, you can bike ride to a lot of places in a really short period of time. And there is public transportation too. And in my next video, I promise you, I will test out the public transportation here so you can kind of get a sense of how smaller cities like Caldish, if it's feasible to live solely car-free. But that being said, you're going to have to really decide if you want to live based upon using public transportation or if you're going to need a car. Most families I know have a car, and it's almost like a sense of relief to have a car because it doesn't restrict you to areas that you want to visit. So just keep that in mind if you have a family. If you have especially more than one child and they have a lot of activities, sometimes it's just easier maneuvering around with your child in a car versus waiting for public transportation. Number 5, this is also a big one that I would highly suggest that you do, is write down a list of all of your activities, including, your grocery shopping, which is an activity for me because I enjoy doing it. But let's just say you enjoy swimming. Let's say you enjoy playing soccer. Let's say your child is in a lot of current activities now, like after school activities in wherever you come from. Let's just say that person likes to do karate. Let's say they like to play the violin. I don't know what your child does, but let's just say they do a lot of that. You're going to want to research the potential area that you're looking at to see if they offer those activities. And if they don't, where is the nearest area that they offer those activities if you want to continue doing it here in Portugal? More than likely, if your child is in a lot of activities, most big cities and even small cities will offer a wide range of those. But not all cities do. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're wanting to live in a more rural area. You're probably going to have to commute into your next largest city for all those activities. Now, let's say you did all 5 activities that I told you to do, you wrote everything down, and you have an idea of what your family wants. Well, the next thing I would tell you to do is pull up Google Maps. I know, this is how it's going to work. Believe me, trust in the process. So pull up Google Maps, you have a whole map of Portugal, right? So let's just say you narrow down that you want to live in a big city like Lisbon and you want your children to go to international schools. Well, in Google Maps, you can then write in the search bar, international schools in Lisbon. And all the international schools will pop up in Lisbon or Cascais, let's just say that whole area. And you can then decide which area makes sense. Maybe you enjoy the, I don't know, like let's say your child, let's say you come from France and you want to continue the French studies. You're going to probably look at the French International School in Lisbon. And then from that, I would then use the little yellow guy in the bottom right-hand corner, the browse street view function. I would take that little guy and drop him down to whatever area on the map that you like so far. And from there, you can see the actual street view of that area and kind of walk along and see if that's a potential area that you enjoy and want to live in. This will already narrow down quite a bit, right? So once you do that to, let's just say, however many, let's say you do that every single night, choose a certain area, walk along virtually that area to see if you like the area. And if you don't, cross that city off your list or cross that neighborhood off your list or that town or that area in general. So that's always a great way to kind of do a scouting trip before you come over here. And then once you already decided on, let's just say 5 towns that you really enjoy or 5 neighborhoods or 5 different cities all within a certain region, then when you come here on your scouting trip, you've already done quite a bit of the legwork already, and you already have seen the area that you loved. So that will make your life so much easier because honestly, I've seen so many people say, I'm going to be on a week-long scouting trip and I'm going to try checking out Porto, Lisbon, Algarve, Setúbal, Alentejo, all this stuff. And I'm like, how are you going to do that in 5 days or 7 days with children? I mean, you are a brave soul. If you are one of those people and you're watching my channel, you are a brave soul, and I am so proud of you if you did that, because I know for my husband and we could barely get 10 days worth, and we didn't really go very far. We were kind of like in the Lisbon, Cascais, Setúbal area. As you've seen in my previous video, I kind of explained it. But we didn't venture and drive all over Portugal because we knew we wanted to be in a certain area. So anyway, I really hope that this was helpful to you. All right, so I'm editing this video and I just realized I kind of left you guys hanging. You found the cities, and then now what do you do? Anyway, sorry about that. So the next thing you would do once you're actually here on your scouting trip and you already have your couple cities or a couple towns, neighborhoods, whatever, I would tell you then to take that 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, I don't know how long you guys are scouting for, but then actually live in each town for more than a day. So many people will stay in one town for like a night or maybe 2 nights and then try to then determine if your family can live there for the rest of their lives. No, please don't do that. Stay at least a few nights in each town to really get a general feeling for the actual area. So when you're staying in those towns for, let's just say, a week, preferably in each town, do your normal activities. So go grocery shopping, check out the schools, check out all the outdoor activities that maybe your family are interested in or already currently do. Meet up with friends, potential friends. So meet up with long-term residents there, other foreigners, locals. Try to arrange as many play dates as you can or meetups with coffee. That's what I would tell you to do, because once you find an area that you can make instant connections with friends, or your children get along with a certain family or whatever, it just makes that area even more appealing because you kind of already have like a friendship base in that area. Then after a week, I feel like you have a good idea if that city will then work for you, or that town. I want to say city, but you know what I'm talking about, that area in general. Then if you plan again, do another scouting trip for a longer period, but just in that 1 or 2 areas that you have now narrowed down. That will then kind of give you a really good idea if that town is for you. Yeah, I really hope this was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. All right, ciao.